Okay, Frederick and Chanukah, I think it's time to welcome everybody as we welcome in A.B. Spry, and we welcome Eddie Chazan. We welcome in Aaron Swade. As we said, we're very happy to have you, Aaron. Mo Kushner, Saba. We welcome in Israel Fisher, Irving Fishbaum, Yaakov Warman, Menachem Umansky, Shelley Zeitlin, Barry Cement, Michal, Dr. Black, Shimon Klein, Nachman Chaplin, Moshe Lehman, Rebel Yayafi, Danny Vogel, Michal Avram Chavin, Elia Shutman, David Helfkat. Here in the shul we have Reb Halpert, Ruven Shanit, and Berish Gesseman, and the Chanukah candles. We are holding 3 lines from the bottom of Daf Tzadik Vav Amud Beis at the new Mishnah. Rabbi Tarfon Omer, Bishel B'tchilas Haregel. If you cooked kachim on the first day of Sukkot, you don't have to purge it the whole Yom Tov. Yevashel by kol haregel. You don't have to purge it the whole Yom Tov, because since they're constantly cooking in it, because there are thousands of karbanas, the second cooking purges out the first cooking, and it never gets a chance to become nicer. The Chachamim say you can't rely on that. Adzman achila, you wait until the end of the time. In other words, let's say it's a shlomim, so it could be eaten for 2 days and 1 night. At the end of the second day, you do the marika shtifa, you have to purge it and rinse it. Marika kemarika sakais, the purging is like the purging of a cup, ushtifa keshtifa sakais, and the rinsing is like the rinsing of the cup from the outside. Marika shtifa b'tzaynet. The marika shtifa is done with cold, besides the purging with hot. Hashpud va'askala, a spit and a grill, magilon b'chan. You have to purge it with boiling liquid. Now, the Rishonim right away say, what's going on over here? We know that cold over anything that's done with burning needs to be burnt out, and it's not enough hagala. So the Rishonim answer why this is, why it's an exception here by Kachim, but that's not the scope of the shir. The Gemara doesn't talk about this question, but this question is asked in other Masechtas. But anyway, the Gemara tells us that Reb Tarfon says that once you cook in the beginning of the regel, you don't have to cook the rest of the regel. So the Gemara, I told you the maskana of the Gemara, but the Gemara researches this. Why is this? My time with Rav Tarfon. What's the reason of Rav Tarfon? The Amar Kra, because it says Ufanisa Babayker, you leave in the morning, this is at the end of Yom Tov, and you return back to your home. So we make the whole Yom Tov as if it was one morning. So therefore there can't be anything past its time. Says the Gemara, that's not true. If that would be the case, then there wouldn't be able to be any pigel and nicer on Yom Tov. Because pigel is when you have a mind to eat it chutzlas manai. But if the whole Yom Tov is like 1 day, then there's no chutzlas manai. And there would be no nicer if everything is considered like 1 day. So is there no pigel on Yom Tov and is there no nicer on Yom Tov? That because it is pasuk, that's the case. But Vatanya Reb Nasan Amar Reb Tarfon Elazu Bilvad, he only makes this din here by purging and rinsing. It has nothing to do with anything else. It has nothing to do with nicer or pigel. Rather, the reason is Elakidirav Nachman Amar Rabba Bar Avua. It's like the explanation of Rav Nachman in the name of Rabba Bar Avua. The Amar Rav Nachman Amar Rabba Avua Kol Yom v'Yom Nasa Gil L'Chaveirai. Every day when they cooked it, it purged the day before's absorption. So the cooking didn't allow it to get nicer. Now, this is true, as the Rishonim explained, that even if they cooked on a chattis on Monday, and that becomes nicer already Monday night, so next day's cooking would not help for that. But after they cooked the chattis on the Monday, there were thousands of karbanas. They cooked the shlomim in it again that day. So on that very day, the absorption of the chattis was taken out. Now, the Chacham say adzman achila. Now, what does that mean? It's a kind of a cryptic language. My Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rab Avua, mamtin lo adzman achila. In other words, let's say shlomim is 2 days and 1 night. So after the second day, when it's nicer, in order for you to use it again, you have to purge it. V'hadar avad la marika shtifa. Says the Gemara, M'nani mili. How do we know this procedure? Rabbi Yochanan mishum Abba Yosi ben Abba ksivu morak umorak v'shutaf b'moyim. It says purging and rinsing. V'ksiv kol zachar b'kahanim ye'achal. All the zachar of kahanim will eat. Hakeitzad mamtin lo adzman achila. You wait until the end of the time of eating, and then v'hadar avid la marika shtifa, and then you purge it and you rinse it. Marika k'marika sakais, and shtifa k'shtifa sakais. The rinsing is like the rinsing of a cup, and the shtifa is like the rinsing of a cup. One is inside, one is outside. Tan Rabbanan, marika shtifa b'tzainin. Besides the purging and boiling water, you need to rinse it inside and out with cold water. Divrei Rebbe. The Chachamim know marika b'cham. The purging is with hot water inside. Ushtifa b'tzayin, and the rinsing is outside is with cold. Now the Gemara says, "My time in Rabbanan, midei dahavi agiulei oivdei kachavim." It's like kashering something that we get with a guy, like the Torah says when we got the kalim of Midian. We boiled it on the inside and rinsed it on the outside. Rebbe Amalach Rebbe says, Hagola loika amina. I'm not talking about purging. You do have to purge. Kika amina l'marika ushtifa de basar hagola. You have to rinse it on the inside and the outside after you purge it with hot water. Rabbanan imkein lichtav kra oy moirek oy shoitev shoitev. If there was a repeat, then it should either say moirek or shaitev shaitev. Mayo moirek v'shaitev. That's shmamina marika b'chamin. That's purging with hot on the inside. Or shtifa b'tzayin. V'Rebbe iksiv moirek havamina trei zimnei moirek or trei zimnei shaitev. I would think that you need to do it 2 times. Therefore, lekach siv moirek v'shaitev. Laimalach marika. Kamarika sakais, rinsing it like the rinsing of a kais on the inside with cold water, shtifa k'shtifa sakais on the outside with cold water, besides the purging with hot water. Now, says the Mishnah, bishul by kachim v'chulin, if you cook in the pot, kachim and chulin, oy kachim v'kachim kalim. Im yesh ben b'naisin tam, if there is enough of the kachim that it's not neutralized 60-1, or enough of the kachim that it's not neutralized 60-1, harei akalin nechel kechamorin. So therefore the chulin would have to be eaten with the strictures of the kachim, and the kachim kalim has to be eaten with the strictures of kachim. Now that means the kachim kalim, which normally could be eaten all over Yerushalayim, would only be able to be eaten in Azara. Kachim kalim could normally be eaten by even Yisraelim. Kachim could only be eaten by male kahanim. Kachim usually could be eaten only for 1 day and 1 night, so that the kachim kalim that absorbed would only be able to be eaten for 1 day and 1 night, and not 2 days and 1 night. However, according to the opinion that only kachim needs marika shtifa, So then this mixture ve'enon tu'unim rika v'shtika ve'enon poislim b'maga, and this mixture will not passel other stuff. In other words, if let's say the kalim become like the chamer, and from this mixture it touches another mixture, it doesn't make the other mixture forbidden. Now we'll see why this is in the Gemara. This needs explanation. Rakik shenagit berakik, a wafer of a mincha that's kosher, that's pasul, that touches a wafer that's kosher, v'chaticha, a piece of meat that's pasul, that touches a piece of meat that's kosher, loy kol rikikin, not the entire wafer, v'loy kol chatichas asurin, not the entire wafer, not the entire meat is asur, eino asur ela b'makom shebala, it's only the point of absorption. We'll see what you have to do now. First, let's understand the beginning of the Mishnah. My Ka'amar, im yesh behem b'noisen tam, if there's enough of the kachik kachim to impart in the chulin, or there's enough of the kachik kachim to impart in the kachik kalim, harei akalin necholin kechamurin. The lenient one takes the strictures of the more severe one. Utunin mirika shtifa, it needs mirika shtifa like kachik kachim. Upaislim b'maga, and then if that which was chomer was pasul, and that which was lenient was kosher, so the one that's lenient becomes pasul. Aim b'hem b'noisen tam, if it's not enough to impart flavor, in other words, there isn't enough of the kachim to impart flavor in the chulin is 60 times more, then eina kalin nechel kechamurin, then you don't have to eat it like the more stringent one. Ve'ein tuna marika shtifa, ve'ein paislim b'magal, and it doesn't disqualify. Says the Gemara, wait a second. If the kachim gets mixed up with the kachim kalim, even if there isn't enough to impart flavor, but it should need marika shtifa because it's kachim kalim, and kachim kalim also needs marika. Nay, the kachim loibo, but kachim kalim nibai, it should need marika shtifa because it's kachim kalim. Says the Gemara, Amar Abaye, my ein tu'unim de kamar. What does it mean that it doesn't need it? It means ein tu'unin kamar kachik kachim. That means that if, let's say, the chatas got mixed with the shlomim, it doesn't have to be purged after a day and a half like the chatas, because it's not enough to impart flavor. Aval kachim kalim tu'unim, but it will need to be purged after 2 days and 1 night, like the shir of a shlomim. That's one way to learn. But Rava learns the simple way, the way I taught it to you in the first place. This is going according to Reb Shimon, who holds that kachim kalim doesn't need marika and shtifa. Rava Mahamani Reb Shimoni, the Amar kachim kalim ain't tu'unim marika and shtifa. Says the Gemara, Bishlaim el Rava, Hainu diktani kachim kachim v'kachim kalim, to tell you the chiddush like Reb Shimon. El Abaya tarte lamali. Why do we need the two cases where kachim gets mixed up with chulin, and also where kachim gets mixed up with the kachim kalim? Isn't it the same idea? Why do we need two cases? So the Gemara says we need both cases. Tzricha. The itani kachim v'chulim. Havamina, you know why? If it's not enough enough to impart flavor, the chulin is mevatel the kachim. Havamina chulin hu the mevatel kachim, because it's a totally different type. The chulin is not a type of kachim. So therefore, if it's 60 times as much, it's going to be mevatel. The lav minayu. Aval kachim kalim that are basically the same, I might think that it's not going to be mavatal, even if it is 60 times as much. Eimaloi. V'itana kachim kalim. Havamina. You know why? If the kachim kalim is 60 times as much, it's mavatal. Havamina kachim hu da'alime. It's a heavyweight. It's kachim. So da'alime levatule kachim. It's strong enough to be mavatal kachim. Aval chulin, which is just plain chulin, I might think it's not mavatal the kachim. Eimaloi tzricha. Now, and let's remember, as we are on Hanukkah, gives great nachas that over 1,300 years after Hanukkah, the Rebbeinu Shalom sees that we are following in the footsteps of our ancestors who toppled the Yevanim and didn't succumb la'ashkicham teresecha. And even though we have many distractions, right? Many distractions. As Eddie knows, travels all over, many distractions. Right, Eddie? Many distractions. And yet, we come and we learn that not one blot, two blot, and Mishnayos. I mean, it's unbelievable. What an olam, what a crowd. An honor to be with such a crowd. Again, that goes for our viewers on Torah Anytime, on YouTube, our listeners on Kol Lashon. What an honor. Now, Rokik shegia barokik, where a wafer touches a wafer, or a piece of disqualified meat touches another piece of meat, we said there's only aser, the place of absorption. Tan Rabbanan, kol asher yiga, all that touches. Yachal afilu sheloi bala, I might think even if there's no absorption, say it was cold, Talmud Leime b'bisara, in its flesh. It has to be absorption, right? Ad sheyivla b'bisara. Now, I might think that if it touches part of the flesh, the whole flesh becomes forbidden. Yachal naga b'mixas chaticha ye kuloi pasel. I might think the whole thing becomes forbidden. Talmud Leime yiga, only a nageya pasel, only the place of contact. Haketzad, chaytech esmakim shebala. You just cut away the place where it absorbed, and the rest is good. Now, the absorption is only bibisara, in the meat, v'loy begidin, not in the toughened sinew, v'loy ba'atzamas, not in bones, v'loy b'karnayim, not in horns, v'loy b'tlafim, and not in hoofs. So the pasuk says, yiktash, it becomes holy, liyais kamoyha. It becomes like that which it touches. So if it touches a chatas, it becomes like the kedusha of the chatas, liyais kamoyha, ketzad, im psula hiti pasal. If it touches something that's pasal, it becomes pasal. Vim ksheri, if it's kosher, so te'achel kechamer sheba, then you have to eat it like the chumrah of what it touched. So if it's like a kachim, it could be only eaten by zichrei kohanim, it could only be eaten in the azara. Says Gemara, but I don't understand. If, let's say, shlamim touches kachim, if shlamim touches chatas, so you say you can only eat it that day. But there's a mitzvah to eat the shlamim on the second day. Va'amai v'neisei asei, let the positive command to eat the shlamim on the second day come v'litchei es lois asei, and supersede the negative prohibition not to eat the chatas on the second day. Because we know throughout Shas we say asei doicha lois asei. So Rava says a big answer. Amar Rava ein asei doicha es lois asei shebemikdash. There's no asei doicha lois asei in the temple. And he brings an interesting raya from a Korban Pesach. We know that a Korban Pesach, you're not allowed to break the bones of a Korban Pesach. On the night of Pesach, we were showing that we were slaughtering the god of the Egyptians. So Hashem says, don't break bones. I don't want you to camouflage it, that they shouldn't think it's their god. Also, on the night of Pesach, we're supposed to be like royalty. Royalty, if they get hungry, they bring out another duck. They bring out another kachka. They don't break a bone. So it says on Pesach, Shenema ve'etzem lo yisishbru bay. You're not allowed to break a bone. And the din is you're not allowed to break a bone, even a marrow bone. But wait a second, there's a mitzvah saseh to eat the marrow. And yet you're not allowed to break the bone in order to get to the marrow. So Rab Shimon Nasiyai me'echad etzem sheyesh by mayach, both a bone that has marrow, ve'echad etzem she'ein by mayach. But amai, you should be able to break the marrow bone because asay doicha lois asay, the asay of eating the marrow, which is kachim, should be doicha the lois asay of breaking the bone. Amai neisei asay v'litche es lois asay. Ella ein asay doicha lois asay shebemikdash. That's one answer. The Gemara gives us another answer. Rav Ashi Yomer, Rav Ashi says, it says in the pasuk, the lashon of yikdash. Yikdash means that it should now be sanctified as a chatas, which you can't eat on the second day. So that's an asehu. Oh, so there's a lois asay and an asay. Ein asay doichas lois asay v'asay. An asay can't supersede a lois asay and an asay. Oh. So the Gemara says, Ashkechan chatas the miskadesh bebelua. We have a source that a chatas sanctifies with absorption. Shar kachim minayin. How do we know that that's true by the rest of kachim? So now the Gemara is going to quote one of the most famous hekish juxtapositions in Shas. Amar Shmuel Mishum Rabbi Eliezer, Zoi Satayra la'oila la'mincha la'chatas la'oshim la'miluim inaugural karbanas ul'zevach hashlam. And from this juxtaposition, we're going to learn a lot of things. So first it says, what do we learn by comparing everything to ola? La'ola ki ola. Ma'ola tu'una keli, just like an oila needs a utensil. Af kol tu'una keli. So all the karbanas need a utensil. So the Gemara says, my kli, what utensil are we learning? Ilem a mizrach, that we have to catch the blood in a basin. We don't need to learn that out from oila. B'shalmei tzibur nami ksivu. It says by the communal shlamim also, v'yikach Moshe chatzi adam v'yasam ba'agonais. He took half of the blood and placed it in basins. So that's not something that's unique to oila. Ella de sakin. It's telling us that the shchita has to be done with a clay shares. Says the Gemara, v'oila gufa minalan. How do we know by an oila that you can't do it with a reed? That you can't do it with a flint stone? Avram stretched out his hand by the Akedah. Vayikach es ha'macheles. Macheles is a knife which makes it ready to be eaten. V'asam oila, and there Yitzchak was a burnt offering. Because Hashem said, "Vayaleu la'oila tachas b'nai." They take the ayil that was found and offer it instead of his son for an ayla. So we learn out from ayla that it has to be with a sakin. What do we learn out from mincha? Mincha. Ma mincha ein nechelas elu zichrei kahuna. Mincha is kachi kachim. And it could only be eaten by male kahanim. Af kol, so also all kachi kachim, ein nechalin elu zichrei kahuna. Says Gemara Mahi. What kachi kachim do we learn out from mincha? Ichatas v'ashim, the sin offering and the guilt offering. Behed yiksibahu. It says kol zocher b'kahanim yechlenu. We don't have to learn it out from mincha. V'ishal meitzibur meribui dekrasi. We learn out Shalmei Tzibur because the pasuk says, "B'kodesh kadashim teichlenu kol zachar yochel oisai." B'kodesh kadashim, in the most holy you should eat it. Every male should eat it. The words "B'kodesh kadashim" are extra. Limed al Shalmei Tzibur. So when it says that the mincha is only eaten by Kahanim, what do we need to learn it from? We know it by Chatas, we know it by Oshim, we know it by a Shalmei Tzibur. Says the Gemara, you're right. Tanoihi, it's machlokes Tanoim. Iked and Nafkala Mihacha. Some learn it out from the extra word Kodesh Kodashim. The Iked and Nafkala Mihacha, and some learn out that the Shalmei Tzibur is only eaten by the Zechrei Kohuna by the comparison to Mincha.
There's no sakin.
Right, because there's a special Chiddush of Malika. But only where that's by a bird. We're talking about animal korbanos. Okay, Rabbi Say, we're going to stop here now, and we're going to do the Mishnah Yaimis.